So this is the second of two videos regarding Peter Hamill's recent re-recording of two of his less loved albums, In a Foreign Town and Out of Water. Now, if you've watched my video for In a Foreign Town, you'll know that I went into that re-recording with a honestly kind of low opinion of the original and found that while the redo is surprisingly close to the original, it's actually changed my perspective on the older recording in a way that I'm really much more attached to it now. Today I'll be talking about Out of Water, which is an album that I was actually somewhat more fond of when I began listening to the alternate version. It's also an album, I think, where a lot more liberties have been taken with the older material. As always, I'm Hans from Electric Brain, Electric Shadow, a contemporary art rock project combining aspects of prog rock, post-punk. In the description for this video, there should be a link to a playlist of some of our best songs, and you can check us out on Bandcamp or your favorite streaming service. So the other disc covered in the revamp, Out of Water, once again, the original had some of the same production flaws as In a Foreign Town. Some of the same simple, rigid drum patterns, some of the same limited synthesizer tones that don't sound that appealing to modern ears. But what he did with the original version of Out of Water was to blend those elements with a greater mix of live instrumentation to make something that was a little bit more distinct, a little more compelling, and also to generally put together denser, more complex arrangements with a greater number of synthesizer and keyboard sounds all coming together. Where In a Foreign Town feels stark and skeletal, Out of Water, even though in many ways it's recorded and produced in a somewhat similar way, feels much more lush by comparison. And I think actually listening to this version didn't really lend itself to easy replication nearly as much. There's a very kind of stark quality to the In a Foreign Town songs that meant Hamill could replicate them without really too much trouble, whereas the songs from Out of Water, I think, because they do have more going on, because they do have more complex mixes and more interesting, nuanced synthesizer layers, sound like they've been harder to kind of duplicate. For that reason, I think it's not surprising that he seems to have taken more liberties with Out of Water. While the songs haven't been completely rearranged, they've had major changes to sound and dynamic, and they've really much more noticeably shifted in this re-recording than the In a Foreign Town songs did. So I want to go into some examples of the kinds of things that I'm talking about. The song Not the Man has a much thicker bass sound, which gives it a more driving quality. Listen here to the original versus the re-recording.
What if I'm not the man that you took me to be? Do I fade from your dreams, disappear from your memories? But if I'm not the man that you took me to be, do I fade from your dreams, disappear from your memory? Look at me if I'm not.
A lot was made in the lead up to this release of the song Something About Isabel's Dance, where Stuart Gordon's original violin recording has been imported wholesale. The one thing that was not re-recorded in this kind of ground-up redo, as a tribute to its irreplaceable quality. And in that song, he's actually compensated for the overlap by adding a dark, driving, almost kind of flamenco-style midsection that's totally new. There are also effects being put on the violin as opposed to the cleaner, straighter sound of the original, which gives it a very different feeling from the sort of moody, late-night, open mic quality of the 1990 version.
The natives are restless and everything's second hand. Everything's second hand. faces.
One of my favorite pieces from the original is On the Surface, and the layering of keyboard sounds here feels maybe a bit less elegant. You know, somehow it doesn't evoke the kind of shimmering waterfalls of synthesizers in the same way, even though in some ways this version does hit harder.
Are we dreaming? Are we dreaming? Are we dreaming?
When I was talking about In a Foreign Town, I mentioned that the drums are generally the same kind of basic, stark, programmed drums on the new version that they were on the old. That remains true here as well. The final track, A Way Out, you know, that's one of the best, most moving songs on the original, just in general, one of the best songs of this era. And in this case, you have a new arrangement that's focused more on guitar and ambient pad. It's an interesting effect, and it does shift the mood in an intriguing way, but the drums have a surprising clumsiness, which in particular I think hurts the atmosphere of what should be the kind of emotionally climactic moment of the whole album.
I wish I'd said I love you. I wish I'd said I love you.
So overall, the original at its best evokes moods and a sense of atmosphere that the re-recording doesn't quite hit, and, you know, to be fair, is perhaps not trying to hit. But on the other hand, I think the re-recordings here, much more so than In a Foreign Town, really represent an interesting and distinct take on the song that really seems to be trying to add something to how they're presented rather than the straighter re-recording of In a Foreign Town. I think it'll offer interesting experiences to people who are very fond of and familiar with Out of Water, but in this case, honestly, I think it is worth seeking out the original if you are not already familiar with it. Thanks for listening, and I'll see everyone next week.